Time. It's the one thing we all share, yet it's also our greatest mystery. We love to mark its passage with celebrations, and there's none bigger than the New Year. It feels so permanent, right? Like a law of nature. But the story of when the year actually begins, well, that's a wild, surprising, and very human story of power, belief, and our desperate need to get a handle on time itself. So, let's just start with what sounds like the easiest question in the world. When is New Year's Day? I mean, it's obvious, isn't it? It's January 1st. It's always been January 1st. But what if I told you that for most of human history, that answer was completely wrong? The date we all take for granted is actually a pretty modern invention. It was cooked up by an emperor, ignored for centuries, and then fought over by popes and kings. To find the real first New Year, we have to forget about the calendar completely and look down at the ground. You see, the earliest celebrations weren't about a date at all. They were about survival. They were about the rhythms of nature. Think about it. 4,000 years ago in Mesopotamia, the New Year kicked off with the spring equinox, when the world came back to life. In ancient Egypt, it was all about the annual flood of the Nile, the event that literally brought life to their entire civilization. And in China, it was tied to the moon and the harvest. The point is, the New Year was something you could actually see and feel. It was nature's clock, not something a person just made up. So how on earth did we get from the flooding of the Nile to a random date in the middle of winter? Well, for that, we have to turn to a guy who saw the calendar not just for telling time, but as a serious tool of power. Back in 46 BCE, Julius Caesar looked at Rome's calendar, which was a total mess that politicians were constantly messing with, and he decided to fix it. He brought in the Julian calendar, and with it, a totally radical idea. The year now officially starts on January 1st. And this wasn't just a random pick. He lined it up with the civic year, the day new government officials took office. It was a power move, a way of stamping Roman order on the world. And the symbolism here is just brilliant. Caesar chose January because it was named for Janus, the god of doorways. Janus had two faces, one looking back at the past year, the other looking forward to the future. It's the perfect metaphor for a new year, right? A doorway in time. An idea so good, we're still using it. But here's the thing, Caesar's new year didn't stick. Not for long, anyway. After Rome fell and Christianity swept through Europe, that whole January 1st party with all its Roman feasting felt a little too pagan. So the church decided to move it, and that is when things got really, really chaotic. What followed was just centuries of confusion. I mean, nobody could agree on when the year actually started. In England, the official New Year was March 25th, a religious holiday. But in other parts of Europe, people might celebrate it on Christmas, or even on Easter, a date that moves around every single year. Imagine trying to file your taxes. But there was a much bigger problem quietly ticking away in the background. See, Caesar's calendar was good, but it wasn't perfect. The leap year calculation was off by just a few minutes. Doesn't sound like much, does it? But over hundreds of years, those minutes added up. By 1582, the calendar was out of sync with the actual seasons by 10 whole days. Now, this was a huge problem for the church because it meant Easter was drifting away from springtime. So Pope Gregory XIII stepped in to fix it. He introduced a new, super accurate calendar, the Gregorian one we use today. His solution, first, he just lopped 10 days right off the calendar to get back in sync. Then, to stop the chaos for good, he declared that for the entire Catholic world, January 1st was the official start of the year, period. So Catholic countries jumped on board pretty quickly. But Protestant countries like Britain, they were suspicious. They weren't about to take orders from the Pope, so they said no thanks and just waited for nearly 200 years. And by the time they finally decided to switch, the problem had gotten even worse. Finally, in 1752, Britain gave in. To get back in sync with everyone else, they had to drop 11 days. So people in Britain and the American colonies went to bed on Wednesday, September 2nd, and they woke up the next morning, and it was Thursday, September 14th. 11 days of their lives, just gone, vanished. And this is where we get that legendary story. Supposedly, people were so furious that the government had stolen their time that they rioted in the streets chanting this now famous slogan, "Give us our 11 days." But here is the amazing twist. It never happened. It's a total myth. Historians have looked, and there's just no evidence of any calendar riots. The entire story comes from this one satirical painting making fun of politicians at the time. It was basically a piece of 18th century fake news that just sounded so good, it stuck around for centuries. And yet, the ghosts of this messy history are still all around us. Ever wonder why the British tax year ends on the bizarre date of April 5th? It's the old New Year, March 25th, plus those 11 missing days. Or traditions like first footing in Scotland. That's an echo of ancient fears about who first crosses your threshold in a new year. And you know our New Year's resolutions? Yep, that's a direct line back to the promises ancient Babylonians made to their gods. But even now, with January 1st pretty much running global business, the idea that there's just one single new year is, well, it's an illusion. Humanity still runs on a whole lot of different clocks. You've got the Lunar New Year, celebrated by billions across Asia. You have NAAN YAAR in Central Asia, which still celebrates the spring equinox, just like the ancient Mesopotamians. And you have Rosh Hashanah and many others. These are living, breathing traditions that remind us that January 1st is just one story about time, among many, many others. So when you boil it all down, the history of the New Year is really a story about control, about emperors and popes trying to tame time. But the celebration itself, no matter when it happens, taps into something much deeper. It's about our universal human need to just draw a line in the sand, to look back, look forward, and believe, even for a moment, that we can have a fresh start. It's about renewal. It's a powerful impulse, isn't it? This desire for a clean slate. And it leaves you with one last thing to think about.